On January 10th, 2026, rapper Pooh Shiesty walked into a meeting with his label boss Gucci Mane. He didn't come to negotiate. He came with a gun. He wanted out of his contract, and when Gucci Mane refused to sign the release papers, things escalated. Police were called, arrests were made. And almost immediately, the internet had a verdict. Gucci Mane is a snitch. But here's the question no one seems to be asking. Can you even be a snitch in a business deal? Because this wasn't a street situation. This was a signed contract, a legal agreement, a business relationship. And the moment people started calling this snitching, they revealed something important about how they think. Let's talk about it. First, let's be clear about what snitching actually is. A snitch is someone who willingly participates in criminal activity, and when they get caught, they turn on the other people involved to save themselves. Everyone in that situation knew the risks going in, so when one person starts talking to avoid consequences, that's what gets them labeled a snitch. But that's completely different from a business situation. If you enter into a legal business deal, sign contracts and then violate those terms or break the law, you can't turn around and call the other person a snitch when they involve the authorities. They weren't committing a crime with you. They were conducting legitimate business. So no, reporting a violation in a business deal isn't snitching. It's simply holding someone accountable within the law. And that's the distinction that matters. Because the moment you confuse the two, you're applying street rules to situations where they don't apply. And that's exactly what happened here. So let's talk about how we got here. Pooh Shiesty was signed to Gucci Mane's label, 1017 Records, back when he was relatively unknown. Gucci Mane gave him that exposure, put him on tracks and helped build his name. And it worked. Pooh Shiesty blew up. His music started charting, money started coming in, and opportunities opened up. But somewhere along the way, he decided the contract wasn't fair. Now let's assume for a moment that all the rumors are true and that the contract was bad and Gucci Mane wasn't dealing fairly. Even if that's the case, you have to remember one thing. This deal was signed when Pooh was nobody. Gucci Mane actually gave him a platform. He gave him visibility. He created opportunities that led to real money. Whether you want to call it thousands or millions, the point is Pooh Shiesty was taken off the streets and placed on a path to build something legitimate. Now, somewhere along the way, he realizes the contract isn't ideal. Fine. But at the same time, he derailed everything himself. Just as things were taken off, Pooh Shiesty got involved in reckless behavior. He pulled a gun, violated parole, and ended up in jail for 5 years. That didn't just hurt his own career, it stalled Gucci Mane's investment and momentum as well. Time, money, and opportunity were all lost, all because of his reckless actions. Then he comes out of jail and suddenly wants out of the contract. Not only that, he escalates things by pulling a gun again, this time demanding a release. And this is where it makes no sense. You were able to sit in jail for 5 years over poor decisions, but you couldn't ride out the duration of a contract you willingly signed. You couldn't fulfill your obligations and then move on the right way. This is where people are getting it wrong. This is not a street situation. This is business. Once contracts are signed, it becomes a legal matter, not a street code issue. Talking about switching in this context is completely misplaced. If there is a dispute, you handle it through lawyers and the courts, not threats, not violence. But here's what people were expecting. They wanted Gucci Mane, who is almost 50 years old, someone who has built a successful, legitimate life, to throw it all away and crash out over this. Think about how ridiculous that is. Why would you want anyone worth millions of dollars to risk their freedom, family, and future over something that can be handled legally? And to his credit, Gucci Mane did it. He called the police. He handled it the way you are supposed to handle it when someone threatens you with a weapon in a business setting. That restraint is what growth looks like. That restraint is what maturity looks like. But instead of recognizing that, people called him a snitch. And that tells you everything you need to know about the mindset at play here. Because the expectation isn't accountability. It's not growth. It's not doing things the right way. The expectation is that you should sacrifice everything you've built over the years to prove you're still a street guy. And that's a losing mentality. Now, here's what makes this even worse. Pooh Shiesty had about 9 people around him when this went down. 9. And not a single one of them acted as a voice of reason. Think about that. 9 grown men, including his own father, and nobody stepped in to say, Pooh, this isn't going to end well. Instead, they all watched the situation spiral out of control. In fact, it was even planned. It looked very planned. They had a contract ready to go. His father even went out to print it, expecting Gucci Mane to sign it under pressure. That alone shows how disconnected they were from reality. This isn't street business. This is legal structured industry. Approaching it like a street situation was always going to end badly. And now, it's not just one person facing the consequences. It's multiple families affected. These are men with responsibilities. Men probably with wives and children dependent on them. One bad decision doesn't just impact the individual. It ripples out to everyone connected to them. That's the real cost of this kind of reckless thinking. What makes it worse is that Pooh Shiesty had just come out of jail. Not even a full year. He's just been out for like 5-6 months. And instead of moving differently, he fell right back into the same patterns. He was able to sit through 5 years behind bars, but couldn't be patient enough to fulfill the contract and walk away the right way. That's not about circumstances. That's about mindset. Meanwhile, Gucci Mane is no longer in that space. He's proving whatever he needed to prove in the past and has transitioned into a business and stability. He has everything to lose. His freedom, his family, his success, and everything that comes with it. So there's no reason for him to crash out over something that can be handled legally. And to his credit, he didn't. That restraint is what separates someone who's grown from someone who's stuck. If you look at Pooh Shiesty before and after he was signed, the difference is clear. He was given an opportunity, visibility, a platform he didn't have before. Whether the contract was perfect or not, it elevated his situation. The logical move would have been to complete the deal, then negotiate better terms in the future with more leverage and experience. But instead, the situation was escalated unnecessarily. And that's the problem. Too many people still approach a business with a street mindset, and it leads to self-sabotage. Not everything is about proving toughness. Not everything is about standing on principle in the moment. Sometimes the smartest move is patience, discipline, understanding the bigger picture. But that requires a level of maturity that clearly wasn't present here. At the end of the day, this didn't have to happen. It could have been handled through conversation, negotiation, and time. Instead, it became another example of how poor decisions can undo real progress. Pooh Shiesty had a buzzing record out after his release from jail. First day out, it's all up in the charts. But to Gucci Mane's credit, for not throwing everything away in process. That restraint likely saved him from a situation that could have cost him everything. Because here's the truth. The streets don't care about your success. They don't care about your family. They don't care about your future. The streets will always pull you back in the moment you let them in. And the only way to avoid that is to recognize when you are no longer in that world and act accordingly. Pooh Shiesty didn't recognize that. His entourage didn't recognize that. And now multiple people are facing consequences that could have been avoided. So what's the takeaway here? It's simple. Business is not the streets. Contracts are not street deals. Legal agreements are not hood code. And the moment you confuse the two, you lose. Calling someone a snitch for reporting a crime in a business context isn't street loyalty. It's ignorance. It's applying the wrong rules to the wrong situation. And it keeps people trapped in a mindset that destroys opportunities instead of building them. Gucci Mane did the right thing. He handled it legally. He protected himself and his business as well as his family. And if that makes him a snitch in some people's eyes, then those people have already lost the game. Because growth means knowing when to walk away from old rules that no longer serve you. And accountability means recognizing that not every situation is a street situation. Sometimes it's just business. Subscribe to Viewspot for more commentary. Thank you.